Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the Fantasy Football Scout YouTube channel. In this video, I'm going to be giving you my final Club World Cup Fantasy Match Day 1 team reveal. So I'm going through every single pick, explaining why. It has changed from last time. There was a few complaints last time about certain people, and I shouldn't be picking certain players. It has changed, I can assure you. And I'm just going to talk through each individual pick. Before we get into it, of course, though, if you could help the channel by dropping a like, and subscribe, that will be absolutely fantastic. Boosting the algorithm and allows other people who potentially also like similar content to this to enjoy it and also see it on their page. So if you could help by dropping a like and subscribe, that would be massively helpful. But yeah, let's get into it. So this is obviously the template that I'm going with. And I'm just going to be building through each individual pick, starting with the goalkeepers. So the two goalkeepers that I'm going with, I'm going to start with the Inter Milan goalkeeper, which is, of course, Jan Sommer. Good season for Inter Milan this season. They, in the Champions League, they were fantastic defensively. I think they've got something like 6 clean sheets in the first 7 games in the Champions League, and that carried on. Now there is a bit of uncertainty, obviously, with Inter Milan, of course, with Inzaghi leaving, but I do think Sommer at 5.4 million is a really good pick. I also really like the fixtures: CF Montreal in the first game, and then Red Diamonds, Ulwa Red Diamonds in the second game. So really, and then obviously in River Plate in the third game. So start with 2 for me, really strong fixtures where I would expect Inter Milan to get clean sheets when they've got such a good defense. Now, yeah, as I said, of course, Inzaghi has left, so maybe that will pay a bit of dividends. But I do think the player quality should still carry them through. They've still got the likes of Bastoni, they've still got a Serbi, they've still got Dumfries. You get the picture. And I have just mentioned someone who is also in my defense. But before we get onto that, I am going to come up with the final with the final goalkeeper, and that is the River Plate goalkeeper. Where is he now? Armani. Come on, let's find you. There he is. Yeah, Franco Armani. River Plate have actually had a really good record this season. Defensively, they have been a really strong defense. Obviously, and that's now reflected in his 15.4% ownership. I also really like the fixtures again. They play Red Diamonds and they play CF Montreal in the first 2 games. And something important to note about this draft as well, I am planning naturally on wildcarding in match day 3. So because of that, there is probably going to be an emphasis on the first 2 games naturally, because it will basically be a free hit for me in match day 3. The plan is actually currently is to use the max captainship in match day 1, which I will talk about later in the video, and also to use the 12th man in match day 2. But yeah, let's move on anyway. So these are my 2 goalkeepers. In defence, I am going to be using or going with Denzel Dumfries. Obviously, he's had an outstanding season in the Champions League. I think he's registered over 10 goal contributions this season as well. Obviously, plays at right wing back again. That could be under question marks, but I do expect the new manager to go into with a similar sort of way that Inzaghi was playing, since it was working so well. I mean, I know they got battered in the Champions League final, but they did reach the Champions League final, and it obviously again is reflected in his ownership at 39.9%. And the fixtures, especially in the first 2, again, really strong. So yeah, looks like a really tidy pick. My next defender is a Bayern Munich defender. Now, I think this is really important, obviously, with the amazing fixture that everyone's talking about, Auckland City FC in the first game. Of course, they are a semi-pro team. I think they're 1 to 1,000 to 1,000 to 1, over 1,000 to 1 to win the tournament. They're actually, I think, 80 or 90 to 1 to beat Bayern Munich in this game. And I know, obviously, the sort of odds don't reflect everything, but everybody is expecting a Bayern Munich absolute trouncing in this game. So, yeah. But Upamecano, of course, for the clean sheet as well. I just think he's the most nailed Bayern Munich defender, which is why he's getting the pick. My third defender, I'm going with Trent Alexander-Arnold. And I'm actually recording it on the day today of, if anyone's seen his announcement video or announcement speech that he's done in Real Madrid, all in Spanish as well. So some Liverpool fans are fuming. Unlucky to the Liverpool fans, he was quite clearly going all along. But what's interesting about Trent Alexander-Arnold is, of course, I think Real Madrid are definitely going to play him. And the reason for this is because they paid 10 million quid for him. They're not going to pay 10 million or 10 million euros. They're not going to pay 10 million euros if he isn't going to play in the Club World Cup. He is going to be playing 100%. 6.4 million, I think 10 goal contributions this season. I know obviously for Liverpool, he's now at Real Madrid, but I just think it's worth a chance. 25% ownership. And again, the first 2 games looking really strong. And actually, to be honest, the third game also looking really strong against Salzburg. But yeah, Trent makes up my third defensive pick. My fourth defender, I am going with a Juventus man. A man who has again registered a lot of goal contributions this season in a really strong Juventus defense. They've not been brilliant at scoring goals this season, Juventus, but that hasn't stopped them defensively. And what I love about Caviar, so again, when I talk about my strategy of course, wildcarding in match day 3, the best 2 fixtures are in match day 1 and match day 2, and then of course they play Man City in match day 3 when I will probably transfer him out. But they play Al Alin FC in the first game, and of course Wydad AC in the second game. So yeah, 2 really strong fixtures. He's been strong all season, linked with a lot of top clubs. I know, and to be fair, Juventus in their own right are a top club, but been linked with the likes of Man City as well. He's a top fullback, and he will hopefully get some goal contributions for me, especially in the first few games. And the final defender, it's probably about time to do some on budget, eh? It's quite a strong defense otherwise. So I have gone, and from anyone that remembers my first draft, he did feature my first draft. He is featuring my second draft, and that is Francesco Mora. Francesco Mora, 13.5% ownership. Again, with the Porto fixtures, 2 really strong fixtures in the first 2 games. I actually think Palmeiras is going to be a bit more of a tricky game. I think that's probably the second best team in the group, so probably doesn't fit my motto as much as the other sort of picks in my team. But I still really like Francisco Mora. I just think at the price point, I do think that Porto will win this group. Maybe Palmeiras will win it, but I do think Porto will be the strongest team. I am still favouring the European teams. I must be honest. I've got to be honest, just say. So yeah, I really like Francisco Mora. Again, plays left wing back. Loads of attacking involvement. Go get him in your team at 4.1 million. That's what I think. Anyway, moving on to the first midfielder. I've not seen at the start of this. I saw a lot of people with Cole Palmer in the draft. I've not seen as many of them since, and now people are saying that he ended the season poorly and all that. He did, but he also turned up in the Conference League final, and a bit of a rest now going into the Club World Cup. I'm expecting bigger things. Now, of course, the only question mark with Palmer, of course, people might throw at me is, Scott, he plays the best game in the third game. Yes, he does. He does. I understand that. The first two match day games are much more difficult than obviously the final game. I get that, but I still think he's a really good option. I still think you should go there. 26.9% ownership as well. So yeah, but I do think he still do really well against the likes of LAFC and Flamengo. I think they're still pretty decent pitches for Cole Palmer. So yeah, he makes my first pick, but I've not seen him a lot recently. Second pick, another really expensive mid, and that is Michael Elise. 37.3% ownership. The 2 strongest fixtures in the first 2, like we talked about with Upamecano. Obviously, they're both the same. So I've got something in my throat. Yeah, they've obviously got the strongest 2. In the first. Glass of water. But yeah, they've obviously got, as I said, they've got the strongest 2 fixtures in the first 2 games. Obviously, Benfica is on the final game week or the final match day. Does look quite difficult, but hopefully they don't get there. And obviously, I can always transfer them out, as I said, with my strategy of wildcarding in match day 3. So yeah, he makes the pick. Top scoring player in Bundesliga fantasy as well this year. Crazy good. Third player again. He was when I started bringing this man to my draft. I've had him for a few days now. Was a bit of a differential. Not anymore. Unfortunately, Di Arrascaeta has become a really popular player in amongst the sort of fantasy community. And actually, he's up at 10.5% ownership. I just love this first fixture. I think these are a team to target. Tunisia, I think they're a really sort of a weaker team in the competition, which is sort of suggested by the bookies odds, etc. And I do think Flamengo will have them on toast, for lack of a better phrase there. I do think they'll. I think that'll be a really, really tidy fixture for them. And I'm expecting some good things. He's also put up some serious numbers in the Brazilian league this year. I think he's got something like 9 goals in 9 games, along with 4 assists. So what's that? 13 goal contributions in 9 games. So yeah, probably pick for Flamengo if you want to go there. I certainly do. My final midfielder, I'm still liking this. Again, he was in my first draft. And that is Julian Brandt. 4.9% ownership. So at the moment, he is getting them extra points, which is tidy. Very, very nice. The fixtures, again, Fluminense in the first game, not ideal, but Sundowns in the second game, obviously, it looks like a really nice fixture. It's a shame he didn't have Ulsan in the first game week. Then he'd obviously be the perfect pick playing Ulsan and Sundowns. He doesn't have that, of course. It's the other way around. But I still think that Dortmund should dominate. I still think they're the best team in this group, and I still think they're going to. And I still think Julian Brandt's a really good pick, is what I'm trying to say. And at 6.5 million, I think to get into this Dortmund team, in my first draft, I did have racing as well. He's sort of fallen out due to, I think, Cambiaso's slightly better. Just I think the games are a bit easier for Cambiaso. But yeah. I feel like I needed to have a Dortmund player, and Julian Brandt was the one that is the one I've gone for. The final midfielder, again, a player that was in my first draft, so maybe not as much adaptation as I did think, potentially. But that is, of course, where is he now? Rodrigo Mora. Plays in the sort of number 10 role for Porto, young kid, a bit like on Mustafano, I believe the Argentinian guy who's just gone to Real Madrid. Obviously, he's a really decent option as well. But I'm going to be going with Rodrigo Mora. Again, it's a shame that he didn't play Al Ali in the first game. And into Miami in the second game, they look like the two sort of weaker teams in the group. But I still think a really good pick. And at 4.2 million, bit of an enabler. Really like him. Put up some really decent returns as well in the Portuguese league this year, which of course we know is a relatively strong league, especially probably in comparison to some of these other teams as well. So he makes up my final midfield slot. And then my forwards, I'm going with Harold Kane. Now, I am playing max captainship in the first game week, but I wouldn't be that surprised if it finished up on Harold Kane. Yeah, 11 million, 41.4% ownership. So really high owned, of course, but I will be captaining him. So there is that. Orkan in the first game, Boca in the second game. Harry Kane plays every minute and always has done. For me, Harry Kane is the most, for me, he's the most essential, the most essential pick in Club World Cup Fantasy for Match Day 1. I think he's the most essential. I think he's probably the most nailed Bayern Munich player. Maybe not. Maybe Bayern Munich fans disagree and say Upamecano. But the upside of that first fixture is outstanding. I mean, this is literally a fixture where I honestly think he could score 4 or 5, genuinely. And it probably won't end up being that. They'll probably cruise through something like 2-0. But I do look at that. I just look at that as a really, really sort of strong fixture, than first two. And of course, then if he doesn't perform in the first two or he's getting rotated, which I think could happen in this tournament, then of course I will move him out in my sort of wildcard slot / free hit in match day 3. So yeah, Harry Kane makes up my first striker. Second striker, there has been something missing from this draft so far, and that is a Man City asset. No longer, they say. It's Erling Haaland coming in. Yep, 21%. It's actually surprisingly low ownership for Haaland. I get why Kane's so much higher, but to have double the ownership, when if you look at sort of the Man City fixtures again, if you are playing it the way I am, with that sort of target in the first two fixtures, they're so good, them fixtures, to Man City. Wydad AC and Al Ain FC, and then obviously the Juventus in the third game. But again, like I've talked about, I can get rid of him for that third game. So yeah, again, this is why I think this strategy of playing, and I'm going to talk about chip strategy a bit more sort of after this team selection as such, and why I'm going with the way I am, and what the reasoning behind is with it. But yeah, I think that's why it's so strong, because there's a lot of teams that have the first two fixtures. The main teams that are like Juventus, they've got such good first two fixtures. Man City have got such good first two fixtures. Bayern Munich, such good first two fixtures. And again, I've selected a lot of players that are in that mold, in my opinion. Not all of them, but a lot of them have been targeted for the first two fixtures. Finally, a man who sort of everybody was saying at the start they don't. Now, not as many are. There's a few sort of competitions on the sort of horizon, but I am going with Samu wherever he is. Where are you, Samu? Where are you? There he is. So yeah, Samu Aghihowa. Samu Aghihowa. Anyway, you get the idea. So first game, of course, he does play Palmeiras, which is not ideal. Talked about that a lot. Not the greatest fixture, but 25 goal contributions in something like 40 games this season for Porto. 4.2 million. I still think potentially the bargain of the game. But I have seen a lot of people going elsewhere. And maybe for good reason. But I just don't agree. Fundamentally. I do think that Samu is sort of such a really good pick. It might even be a player that you can hold for all 3 games, but I definitely can assess it after the first 2, as I said, and then going into my wild card in match day 3 or in my wild card in match day 3. So I could sort of differ elsewhere depending on fixture swings, of course. But yeah, 7.2% ownership. So not quite under. However, he has been dropping. So I wouldn't be actually surprised if Samu does give him an extra 2 points for being in that sort of under 5% ownership place as such. But yeah, I won't be that surprised if he drops down to that. But yeah, this is going to be my team for I believe this is my team for match day 1. So let's try to see if I can save that through. Don't lose your team. I need to make a FIFA account. I ain't even made one. What an idiot. No, I'm going to leave that. But I will talk a bit about my sort of Club World Cup strategy. Basically, my Club World Cup strategy is as follows. I'm going to be using the max captain chip in game week, in match day 1. That is my plan. The reason for that is I just think, yes, Kane has ridiculous upside. And if I was going anywhere, I'd obviously captain Kane. But because of rotation potentially, and I don't know the sort of lay of the land in terms of rotation, and I want to sort of lean on the side of caution. Because there is a situation, in my opinion, where Company potentially rotates Elise and Kane in them first games and ended up requiring Palmer, who's the only big asset that plays and gets points. And to avoid ending up in a situation where rotation completely kills me, which I do think is a potential worry, especially with the Bayern Munich assets, I just want to sort of hedge my bets a bit. I don't want to be behind after match day 1 massively, and I want to hedge my bets because I think when you get to match day 2, because I know there isn't a strategy to do sort of the 12th man in match day 1, and then in match day 2, play max captain or play max captain the final. I know people are looking at as well, but for me, I'd like to see the lay of the land first. I want to see how teams are going to treat this tournament in match day 1, and I think the best way to do that is to be a bit cautiously. And I think the best way to sort of play cautiously is hedge my bets on captaincy, which is why I'm playing the max captain chip. As well as that, I do think in this first game week, there is a lot of upside players in my team. Harry Kane, I think, is a massive upside, as we've talked about. Haaland, massive upside. Arrascatia, massive upside as well, in my opinion, could go off. And again, he could end up being captain. And that's what's the beauty of the max captainship in the first game week. Elise, again, with his fixture, there's a number of options who could end up being the max captain could end up playing or being on. And as I said, I just want to hedge my bets a bit with that, and I think that is the play. The other reason I'm not leaving this till I know there's a shout to leave it to the final. The reason I'm not leaving it to the final is because the final will be against 2 teams who are very good. Hence, they've got to the final, and I would rather go with a more upside chance in terms of when these teams are playing against the really poor teams in the competition or the worst teams. Because the games where you get the sort of the highest difference in terms of quality between teams is naturally in the group stage, because obviously the best teams progress. So Auckland are not going to progress, so they're not going to be getting. There's any more chance to captain players against Auckland. So I just think this, as I said, the first game week. The 2 reasons are I don't want to use it in the final, which I know some people like to do, and I'm conscious of rotation and I want to hedge my bets a bit. Which is why I'm picking it in match day 1. And I hope that explains it. And let me know in the comments if you disagree or agree. I think there will be sort of controversy on that. And then in terms of match day 2, the 12th man originally was going to be on Dembele. Now I understand Dembele is out, of course, for the whole of the group stage, so it won't be him anymore. But I do like the idea of a Julian Alvarez potentially as my player in game week 12. I don't mind even. I know this sounds ridiculous, but I don't even hate Hakimi because I think the upside of Hakimi with the sort of defensive actions is really strong. I don't hate the idea of a Desiree Doué as well. I think he could be a really good option. I know these players are not the highest price points, and maybe you want to bring in someone with a ridiculous high price point. And I could end up going and getting Mbappe, for example, in match day 2 against Pachuca. That could be an option. But I do just think, and I might end up with Mbappe, but I just think for me, the 12th man, I'm going to leave until match day 2 because I think, again, when this rolls into my sort of strategy, if, for example, Company decides to rotate a few of these players in match day 1, there is a situation where, say, you went for Musiala as your 4th and you went for 4 Bayern Munich players in match day 1, and that was your sort of 12th man. I would worry if you do that, that again, one of them will be rotated and then you're losing the idea of the 12 man. So after the first game week, I can get a good look as to what teams are doing, how they are rotating, if they are rotating, and build from there. And that's my plan. And then I am trying to target obviously then fixture swings, and then in obviously in match day 2, the plan, of course, then is to use my wild card, which will almost act as a free hit because, as we know, of course, when you get to the round of 16, you get a completely new team again, so I can rebuild my team from there. So yeah, that is my current strategy for my chip strategy. Now, admittedly, I might be blowing out early, and I might use all my chips early, and people might kill me in the semis and the finals when they've still got chips left. That might well happen. But I like the upside of the group stages. I want to hedge my bets in the first game. I've been over it now. I hope you get the idea. And if you don't, you don't. But yeah, that is going to be my match day 1 team, I believe. Unless there's any last minute changes, but I don't think it is. I'm quite happy with this team now. So yeah, I hope you've all enjoyed the video as always. If you could drop a like and subscribe, that would be absolutely fantastic. And I will see you on the next one. Bye for now, everybody. Bye for now.